Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you. Hope you enjoyed last episode. Hope you started to make some progress, on what we put out there. If you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to it. I mean, there were some steps I gave you that I think you should do, especially with 2020 being kind of an interesting year. Now, some of you might listen to this in 2022, but this is an interesting year. And so there'll be two types of people in 2020. There'll be people that actually say because of COVID, they were able to make some moves and they got from it, and they're actually in a different position, in a great position because of it, because they were able to make some capital moves and some really cool things and take opportunities in the marketplace. Some people will still be complaining about COVID 10 years from now. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. And so we always get from things. We always, we try to look for opportunities when there's opportunities, and we're always trying to grow, and we're always trying to get better, and we're always trying to find out where are the places we can do that. And so today I want to talk about, I did a workshop last week, and I really started talking to our members about capital, and we really got into investment and capital and really talking about that. And I think on 2 podcasts ago, I was talking about the difference between money and capital. And it's so important that we understand that there's a difference between money and capital, and money is used for our personal expenses, and capital is actually what we use to invest in the practice. And so I got so many people coming back to me and so many great comments and people really realizing, hey, look, I really got to get lasered in on this capital conversation. I really got to get, one of the things I haven't done, and a lot of people told me this, is, I haven't really got focused in on being a capital manager. Doesn't that sound cool? Like I'm a capital manager. Yeah, you are. You're a CEO. You're a business owner. You are a manager of capital. You could say, instead of a dentist, you say, I manage capital for a living. I mean, you really do. If you really want to think about it, you do manage capital for a living. And, well, some of you do. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Some of you manage capital for a living. Some of you don't. And some of you let capital manage you, or maybe even the lack of capital manage you. And so when I started thinking about this podcast, I was thinking about this idea of reinvestment. And I was going through my notes and I thought, it's so important to understand that great businesses reinvest. And one of the things I was explaining is that sometimes the massive reinvestment doesn't happen in a dental business, but let me explain why that doesn't happen. If I was to start a software company, so let's take Mark Cuban. I remember Mark Cuban one day talking about when he started his software company, he was living on in an apartment with no furniture, and he was eating ramen noodles. He was doing whatever he could to get by. And then everything was about growing the company, and nothing was about his personal income. It certainly wasn't about being a billionaire at the time. He was just trying to grow his company. And so what happens is there's massive amount of reinvestment in the business. And most people that start a business, they don't take giant salaries out of the business. And what happens is all of the money is reinvested back into the business. And so what ends up happening is the business, in turn, it grows because there's a lot of capital that's left behind for growth. Now, some people can fall on the other side where they don't take enough out, and that's another conversation. But dentists are highly skilled labor. Now, I'm not trying to make you a commodity. I'm just letting you know, you're highly skilled. You went to school for a lot of years. Some of you, even listening to this, are oral surgeons, so you even went to school for longer. Maybe you did some residencies. Look, so some of you have went to school for a long time. So when you actually start thinking about this, you are truly highly, highly trained, highly, highly skilled labor. And then so that's the case, you look at it and you say, well, as an associate, I would get paid $150. I'm just making up a number. And so I want to pay, if I have my own business, I want to make $200. And that's fine in some ways, but you're treating your business as an income stream. Now, by the way, I'm fine with you making $200. I'm fine with you making $1 million a year. And I think there's a way to do that. And I want to talk through that. But I want you to hear what I'm saying. So I'm not saying you don't need a pay cut or you should take a pay cut necessarily. I'm just saying that understand why dental businesses don't get a massive amount of reinvestment is because doctors tend to be highly skilled labor. So at the very front side, they tend to want a lot of money out of the business pretty right away. And then what that begets is a business that becomes an income stream. And it becomes an income stream. And then the financial advisor, groups out of, Texas or wherever come to you and they say, well, here's what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to make it even more of an income stream. We're going to have you take that money and we're going to have you, put it in the stock market. We're going to have you take more and more money out of your business and put it in the stock market. And so we won't even treat it as an asset. We'll treat it as an income stream. It's going to go into the stock market. So we're going to take it out of an asset doing 30%. We're going to put it somewhere doing 5%. And the only ones that get truly wealthy on that is the investors, the advisors. And so what ends up happening is we take all the money out of this asset, which I've talked about before. And then what happens is we treat it like it's an income stream. So we just keep, as soon as we start to get an extra 10,000 in the business, as soon as there's an extra 20,000, what we tend to do is we take it home. And then what we do is we take on more debt. So every time that the supply rep comes out and says, we got a new fancy dancy piece of equipment, we buy the new piece of equipment, we use debt to do it. And instead of looking at ROI and paying that down dramatically, we instead don't measure the ROI at all. We take on more debt. And so this business just gets constricted and it becomes an income stream. And then what ends up happening over time, and even the team treats it like an income stream because the team comes back and says, we want more money, we want more money, we want more money. Right? And so they're always wanting a raise. You're always wanting a raise. And then everybody wants a raise from this machine. And then what happens is everybody loses. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So everybody loses because the fact that we don't get to, because we don't have capital left over for investment. Now you might take out a lot of debt to do it, but what ends up happening is the capital ends up going home, so the reinvestment isn't there. So because the investment isn't there, and we're not making the massive investments back into this business, that's why I tell dentists, I'm like, if your practice is doing 1.4 million after 30 years, that's not successful. It means that you've used it as an income stream. Now, I'm not saying you're not a successful person. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm just trying to say that as a business, as an asset, you have not maximized this asset. And that's why dental businesses get stuck. And so what we have to do is we have to invest back into this asset. Now, me saying that you want a high income is to say, like, by the way, I want you to have a high income. This is called Dental Wealth Podcast. I want you to have a high income, but we got to make sure we put things in the right order. So like thinking through that, what we have to do is say, okay, well, how do I get this business? Because there's a balance. I want you to take a good income. Some doctors have to get to take more income. But the other side of this is like, but I got to be reinvesting back in this asset. I got to reinvest things that have an ROI. They have to have a significant ROI, and I've got to quantify that ROI. And if I don't know how, that's fine. Reach out to someone like me and we'll help you with it. But look, you've got to be getting the ROI back from these investments within this business. And then your number one job is to grow. And I was talking to a dentist yesterday and I said, what's the number one job of a CEO? I want you to think about that for a minute. What's the number one job of a CEO? The number one job. It's not to lead people. It's not. It's truly not. Number one job is to increase shareholder value. Now, what the heck does that mean? It means your job, whether you're Apple, Tim Cook's job is to increase shareholder value. So if you own shares of Apple, the idea is Tim Cook raises the valuation of that stock so that when you bought the stock, your stock goes up. So then that's his job, is to make the stock price go up. In a sense, your job as a CEO is not to make it an income stream because you're actually devaluing the stock. Your job is to make the stock value go up. So your idea is to get the valuation of the practice up. You want to actually be able to sell it for more. Now, you might be the only shareholder in the picture, but you still want that shareholder value to increase. You want to watch that shareholder value increase for you, for your family, and for your team, because your team is stakeholders. They are. Your team are stakeholders in the success of the business. They are. They might not be shareholders, but they're certainly stakeholders. And so what happens is we need to be constantly reinvesting and not treating it like an income stream. We need to treat it like an asset. And so therefore what we have to do is we have to be looking at capital versus money and saying, this is money, I'm going to take home money, and then I've got capital, which is money that needs to be reinvested back into the business. Your job is to grow the valuation. And it's to look at capital, and I teach a system of managing capital at Tower Leadership. And the reason I teach a system is because what ends up happening is people, I tend to find them on one side or the other. One side they have no capital, or the other side they're holding on too much capital. I tell a story. I had a guy years ago came up to me. I'll never forget this. He came up to me. And by the way, I always tell this story. He came up to me. I don't know why he approached me, but he had heard about me, I guess. And he had come up to me at a dental event I was at. And he said, I've got this many locations and I'm this hot shot and I've done this and I've done that. And I've got $600,000 in cash. And why would I need to use you or need your help? And I thought, dude, you approached me, And I got a piece of paper out. And I showed him how by not learning how to manage capital, that it was costing him millions of dollars a year because he was sitting on too much capital, because he didn't know how to invest that capital. And in fact, there's so many doctors that sit on too much capital. Instead of having $40,000 in their main account, they have $120,000 in their main account. And I asked them why, and they say, I don't know. I didn't know what else to do with the money, or I'm scared. We're scared because we need a system around to understand things are being taken care of. So therefore we can start making investments and we can stop taking on so much debt. Now, on this podcast, I don't want to talk about the whole system. That would take a lot more than the time we have here. But I do want you to hear me when I say that we've got to become great managers of capital. Like I told you a few podcasts ago, like creating like I am statements and like being like affirmative in who you are. I want you to write like, I am a great manager of capital. You need to become a great manager of capital. You need to own that. As a CEO, as a business owner, you need to want to become a great steward of money. So we want to constantly be investing. Well, how do you know if you're not reinvesting? You say, well, Eric, I don't know how did my... Well, look, if your team's not properly trained up, if your team's not trained up so that they have amazing systems and you don't have a leadership team and those types of things, I'm telling you, you're not investing capital the way you should. If you have high turnover, I'll promise you're not investing capital in the way you should. If your facility looks out of date, you're not investing capital the way you should. And here's what ends up happening, by the way. I mean, if your new patients are low, then you're not investing capital. If you're heavy reliance on insurance, you're not investing in your capital. Look, here's what ends up happening. I want you to hear what I'm saying. So I always talk about the organizational ceiling, and what happens is over time, what ends up happening is when we start to just rip all the extra cash out of the business, okay? So we get this dental practice, boom, day one. We get this awesome dental practice. We don't reinvest. And when we don't reinvest, what ends up happening is over time, the facility goes down. It starts to look antiquated. It starts to look old. The chairs start to fall apart. And the only thing we've done, the only investments we've made in our business is when we took out debt, so that we can buy some piece of equipment that probably we either did not capture the ROI. Big difference between having ROI and capturing the ROI. You got to capture the ROI. And so we bought some equipment, but all of a sudden the facility starts looking old, and you know what I'm talking about. It starts to smell, and we don't want to give people raises, and we don't want to invest in better people, and we don't want to invest in team, and we don't want to invest in team training. So what ends up happening is we start having turnover, and then we start to get frustrated because we have people coming in and out of the organization. The facility starts to look bad. As that starts to happen, and by the way, this is the business cycle. So this is when decline starts to happen in a business. So we come into this growth phase. We start a new business. We're in inception. And then we start to get this growth phase. People are coming in. It's kicking butt. It's taking names. Everything's awesome. Over time, what we start to do is we get complacent because things are good. The doctor takes pretty much the vast majority of the profit out of the business. There is no reinvestment or very limited reinvestment back in the business. As that starts to happen, people start to leave because they're not able to grow in that organization. People can't, like the true great leaders can't grow. They can't make more money. They can't grow their career. And so they're stuck. So they end up starting to leave. As they start to leave, you have people that are coming in that aren't as talented, or you can't just say, well, I have one person, Susie, she's been great. She's still with me. Yeah, but what about the rest of the team? So what ends up happening is you start to have a turnover and the team doesn't love being there. The facility starts getting old. As that starts to happen, patients don't want to come back. They don't want to refer you because they start to go, man, place is kind of stinky. There's always a new person up front. Guys, and I'm not trying to look. This is what happens to businesses, by the way. It happens to all businesses on a big business cycle that do not reinvest capital. And then eventually happens. The doctor gets older. They try to sell off the practice in decline, because it's in decline at this point, before anyone figures out what all the problems are. And it's for a valuation. Remember, their number one job was to increase in shareholder value. And then they sell it for a valuation that's way lower than they would have wanted, where they could have got millions of dollars. They walk away with like 400 grand after taxes. And then they hope they've saved enough for, for retirement. And most of them haven't. And so that's why 95% of doctors will retire with less income than they have when they're working. And so like, you don't want to be that person. None of that sounds good. Like as I'm talking, maybe you even felt like the weight in your shoulders drop. Maybe you felt like, man, I really don't want to go on that roller coaster ride. Well, here's the good news. The good news is you don't have to. You don't have to go on that roller coaster ride, and you don't have to go down like that. You can make a change. The difference is that there's a balance. Yes, you have to have income for yourself, and yes, you have to take care of your family. But what we do is we take care of the vehicle, the vessel, the mothership first. We grow the asset, and as that asset grows over time, then what ends up happening is you have your income will go up by reinvesting in the asset and knowing where to reinvest. And as that reinvestment goes up, you will increase shareholder value, and you'll be able to hire better team members. You'll be able to afford a leadership team. You'll be able to get a marketing in place. You'll be able to maybe have another location. And so what ends up happening is we have to become really, really good at investing capital. And by the way, the team members need to be involved in this. This can't just be your job, by the way. The team members need to own this fact too. So when they're not being smart about money, if they're not providing more value but asking for more money just because one rock went around another rock, then what's got to happen is you got to go back and say, look, here's the thing. If we're not able to reinvest back in this practice because we don't have extra capital, like if we're not going above and beyond, I can't invest it back into you. I can't just give you money because one rock went around another rock. We got to be able to create more value. We have to create more patience. We have to create more raving fans. We have to be able to do these things. And then we have to take a portion of that money. We have to reinvest that capital back in the business, because if we do that, we'll have a new facility. We'll be able to give raises out. We'll be able to do so much more things for our patients and for our community and for our families and do all these things. But so that they are, I said this earlier in the podcast, they are stakeholders in your business. They have a stake in what happens to this business. And if you say, well, the people that I have don't care, well, then go get new people then. Or maybe it's the way you're leading them. I don't know. But I would say that they have a stake as well in the future outcome of this business and in the success of this business. They have a stake in it too. All of you together are trying to ride this mothership. And one of the things that happens is that all of you need to be looking at the balance between how much money you take home and how much gets reinvested, because everyone wins. Everybody wants to make more money. And by the way, that will never change. I don't think there's ever going to be a point where somebody comes up to you and say, no, I'm good. Don't pay me any more. But as a CEO, you've got to realize that if you take all the money out, or the team takes all the, by the way, I've seen organizations, by the way, dental organizations where the CEO was making nothing and the team was making everything. So sometimes it's the team that's taking all the money. I get that. But this business was not designed as an income stream. It was designed as an asset. It was always supposed to be an asset. Some financial advisor or some person or some consultant tried to convince you as an income stream, treated it like an income stream. And then you started treating it like an income stream. And then what ended up happening was your asset never grew. And because your asset never grew, you never got the valuation you deserved. And because you never got the valuation, you weren't actually to grow your net worth and the way you really truly want to, and your wealth the way you truly deserve to. And so you weren't able to maximize the asset. And that it needs to change. And it can change here today. The problem is the vast majority of people that are giving you coaching advice are money managers and not capital managers. And so they don't understand how to manage capital. Your accountants don't know how to manage capital. There are some, but very rare, that they know how to manage capital. It's not what they went to school for. It's not what they're educated on. They never went to school. CPAs did not go to school learning how to manage capital. And heck, a lot of them went back a lot of them went back and got investment licenses so that they can tell you to not invest in your. This is like, I'll go on record saying this. I don't think that somebody should be able to hold a CPA and an investment license at the same time. I'm going to go on record and say this again. I don't think you should hold a CPA license and an investment license simultaneously. Now, the reason I say that is because, so you're going to tell me you have a vested interest. If you're a CPA that has an investment advisor license and you're an RIA and you have the ability to, what you're doing is you have an incentive to tell me to not invest in my practice. You have an incentive to tell me not to invest in my business. You financially get paid for me not investing in my business. And so you'll see this all over. You'll see people that are CPAs that are trying to do your investments. They literally get paid if you don't invest in your business and invest with them. That's money management, not capital management. Here's the fundamental problem with that. A dental practice is doing somewhere between 30 to 50% profit margin, and someone's trying to convince you to shove it into somewhere doing 5 so that they can have assets under management so that they can get wealthy and not you. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have money in money management. I'm not saying that. And there's some great advisors out there. I'm not saying that they're not great advisors. I am saying that we have to be careful when we get that advice. When people start and this is the biggest, one of the reasons I got into dental consulting was because I said, there are too many people telling dentists not to invest back in their practice. And in fact, I was like, I don't know anyone who's telling dentists to invest back in their practice. Everyone's telling them to take the money out. And I saw all these people, like I actually was funny. I'm like on a tangent now. I get fired up about this stuff. I was talking to my team this morning and I said, look, one of the reasons I got into this because I got so frustrated at this industry. And as someone who married a dentist, I was like, I watched these, and it felt to me like all these people were targeting dentists and doing whatever they could to get paid off these dentists, but they weren't actually caring about the dentist. And the reason I call this tower leadership, I was like, someone's got to lead and show these people how to be leaders and have to take care of these doctors because someone's got to get their backs. My family depends on dentistry in every way possible. And as someone who's managed and built a dental practice from scratch, I was like, look, I watch it and I watch all these people take advantage of these dentists and it's a shame. It's got to stop. If we know that 95% of dentists are retiring with less income than they had when they were working and no one's stopping that, then we are part of the problem and not part of the solution. Now, maybe it's because they don't have the knowledge and the acumen. That's fine, but don't act like you have the knowledge and acumen if you don't. Like, be honest. And so I know I'm fired up right this moment because I get so passionate about this because I'm like, look, you got to make sure you're getting the right advice in the right areas. Look, when it comes to tax law, don't ask me. I'm not a CP. I'm not a tax accountant. I don't know tax law. I know a good portion of it, but I'm not a tax CPA. So I don't try to become a tax CPA. It's not who I am. And so we got to make sure that people stay in their areas and they're doing what they're supposed to be focused on. And so we get advice from the right areas. So I'm okay telling you what I do really well and what I don't really do well. And that's okay. It's just the same thing as you're not going to start advising someone tomorrow on their orthopedic surgery. Like, you're not going to do that. And so we got to make sure we're getting advice from the same areas. Now, the reason I'm fired up about this is I know that when you learn how to manage capital correctly, when you become really, really good at capital management as a CEO, it will change your entire practice. Literally, you want to talk about quadrupling your revenues? You want to talk about, and I'm serious, I'm literally telling you, you want to quadruple your revenues? You want to talk about moving the numbers, moving profitability? You want to about impacting your team and community and your legacy? You want to talk about wealth that goes up forever? You learn how to manage capital. You want to become really, really, really rich? You want to become really wealthy? You want to impact your entire team and their families? Do you want to make a difference in your kids' lives? We learn how to manage capital, not income. Income gets spent. Income goes to boats, and it goes to houses, and it goes to cars, and it goes to taxes, and it goes to all that stuff. Money goes to that stuff, so that doesn't make you wealthy. By the way, putting money management doesn't make you wealthy. It gives you a retirement, which is the whole idea is that you die before it's all gone. So here's the thing, like, that's not even supposed to make you wealthy. It's supposed to get you to have a nice retirement. I'm talking about generational wealth. I'm talking about massive money movements. And the way to make massive money movements is to learn how to manage capital. And when you do that and you own it, and it's part of who you are as a CEO, and you become more of a capital manager than a dentist, I'm telling you that's where the difference maker is. When you start owning that, I'm telling you, your colleagues are not going to manage manage capital. Make sure I make that very clear. Your colleagues aren't going to be able to do that. The vast majority of your friends aren't going to be able to do that. But when you become great, and that's why I was teaching all these doctors about capital management, when you become really great at capital management, it is an absolute game changer for everyone that you touch and everyone your practice touches, which is why I hope you started a dental practice, was not just to get wealthy, but to change people's lives, guys. So listen, take that calling on this week. Take that calling, and if you need some help, reach out from us. If you want to do some research or whatever, hey, look, go do it. But you got to become great at capital management. I have my own system. Maybe you have a system you use. We've got to get great at capital management. This is an asset, not an income stream. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Remember, always share this with a friend. Find another colleague to talk through this. Man, I'm telling you, don't keep all this stuff in your head. And don't share it. When you start talking through this, you guys will hit blocks. When you hit blocks, that's a great time to reach out. This is the great stuff to help you grow and get ignited and get fueled up for the future. And when you do that, it's going to change your entire financial life and your future. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.